His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa met with the Prime Minister of Egypt Dr. Mostafa Madbouly at the new administrative capital as part of His Royal Highness's official visit to Egypt. His Royal Highness attributed the strength of Bahrain-Egypt relations to the support of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and the President of Egypt Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, noting that this contributes to fulfilling the aspirations of both countries. He outlined the strength of the historic relations, referencing the ongoing growth driven by close cooperation, coordination and extensive partnerships across a wide range of sectors. His Royal Highness underscored Bahrain's commitment to further advancing bilateral relations. He also highlighted Egypt's pivotal role in the Arab world and the region, as well as its efforts towards strengthening Arab national security. He affirmed the mutual commitment of both countries to advancing multi-sectoral cooperation in support of their shared aspirations. His Royal Highness held roundtable discussions with Dr. Mostafa Madbouly, during which they reviewed avenues to enhance cooperation across various sectors, particularly digital transformation, logistics, industry, tourism, construction and food security, as well as issues of mutual interest and the latest regional and international developments. Dr. Madbouly expressed his appreciation for His Royal Highness's commitment to strengthening bilateral relations, wishing Bahrain further progress and prosperity. In the presence of His Royal Highness, the following agreements were signed. An MOU between ALBA, an aluminum company of Egypt, Egyptalum, regarding investment cooperation to evaluate the feasibility of building an aluminum refining plant in Egypt. It was signed by the Minister of Finance and National Economy and Chairman of the Board of Directors of Mumtalakat, Sheikh Salman bin Khalifa Al Khalifa, on behalf of Bahrain, while the Executive Managing Director of the Holding Company for Metallurgical Industries, Engineer Mohammed Al-Sa'dawi, signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU between the Bahrain Economic Development Board and Egypt's General Authority for Investments and Free Zones regarding strengthening bilateral investment relations. It was signed by the Minister of Sustainable Development and Chief Executive of the EDB, Noor Al-Khleif, while the CEO of the General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, Hussam Heiba, signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU on strategic cooperation was signed between Exhibition World Bahrain and the Bahrain Tourism and Exhibitions Authority, building upon a previously signed memorandum during the presidential visit to Bahrain in June 2022. The MOU was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid al-Zayani, on behalf of Bahrain, and on behalf of Egypt, the MOU was signed by the Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, Hassan al-Khatib. An agreement on the Authorized Economic Operator Program was signed between the Customs Affairs of the Ministry of Interior of Bahrain and the Customs Authority of the Ministry of Finance of Egypt. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain and by the Minister of Finance, Ahmed Kajouk, on behalf of Egypt. An MOU for cooperation in the tourism sector between the Ministry of Tourism of Bahrain and the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities of Egypt. The MOU was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain and the Minister of Finance on behalf of Egypt. An MOU regarding cooperation in the field of antiquities and museums between the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities and Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain and the Minister of Finance on behalf of Egypt. An MOU regarding cooperation in the protection of competition between Bahrain's Ministry of Industry and Commerce and the Egyptian Competition Authority, signed by the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Abdullah Fakhro, on behalf of Bahrain and the Minister of Finance on behalf of Egypt. An MOU on technical cooperation, the exchange of expertise, and capacity building in the sustainable development sector was signed between the Ministry of Sustainable Development of Bahrain and the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation of Egypt. The MOU was signed by the Minister of Sustainable Development on behalf of Bahrain and the Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Dr. Rani al-Mashat, signed on behalf of Egypt. Several agreements were also signed ahead of His Royal Highness's meeting with Dr. Mostafa Madbouly. These agreements include an MOU in Labor and Human Resources between the Kingdom's Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Labor of Egypt. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU on the establishment of a Council for Urban Planning between the Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning of Bahrain and the Ministry of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities of Egypt. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU on the establishment of a Bahraini Egyptian Youth Council between Bahrain's Ministry of Youth Affairs and Egypt's Ministry of Youth and Sports. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU between the Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning of Bahrain and the Ministry of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities of Egypt to invite Egyptian construction companies to participate in tenders for the Government Land Rights Development Program in Bahrain. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Bahrain, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. An MOU regarding cooperation between the Social Insurance Organization of Bahrain and the National Social Insurance Authority of Egypt. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. And an MOU between the Ministry of Social Development of Bahrain and the Ministry of Social Solidarity of Egypt for cooperation in the field of social affairs. The memorandum was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, while the Minister of Finance signed on behalf of Egypt. After that, a lunch banquet was held by Dr. Mostafa Madbouly in honor of His Royal Highness and the accompanying delegation's visit to Egypt.